Or is that part of the paradigm?
Is that part of the paradigm, right?
Which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
We're going to get into.
Yeah, so when you say getting the message out, what is that message that you want to share? What is it? First thing you want people to walk away with?
Well, I think just based on our discussions and you know what this conscious endeavor is about is you know, if you look at programming from a kind of a societal perspective, we're all programmed, right? And we're programmed to do certain things. We're programmed to think a certain way. We're programmed, you know, in certain aspects of our health, and you know, and I guess I won't speak for you. I'll let you do that for yourself. But my journey has been about, you know, really the last 25 years of discovering tools and means with which to feel, you know, really much more comfortable in my own skin, and ultimately finding tools to work on mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical components of the self, or of myself, so that you know, I can come more fully to every aspect of my life. I can, you know, live healthfully. I can give back to others. I can help other people. I can be myself. You know, in a society that's really is programmed the masses to, everybody has to go this way, and you got to look that way, and you got to get this job, and you got to, you know, do all these things. Where it's like, you know, typically you look at the person going the opposite direction. They're the troublemaker. They're the one that's, you know, they're the one that's wrong. When you know, I think now we're coming into an age where that person is the one to pay attention to, rather than the masses, right? Because I think the masses have been duped, and you know, in my experience, it's what we were told early on, or what I was told early on, never resonated with me, and so I always had questions of, is what the media is saying is true? Or, you know, are we supposed to just, you know, go to school, stop imagining, stop daydreaming, really pay attention to this stuff that fits into a box, and if, you know, if we do well, then we can get a job, we can make a certain amount of money, maybe travel a little bit, work for 50 years. If we're lucky, we still have our health, and then we can retire and have a good time with what's left between, you know, 65 and 85, and then we die, and that's it. It never clicked with me, and right from 13 years old on, I've been asking questions, and now I think we're at a day and age where a lot more people are asking those questions, and people are starting to, wait a minute, maybe what we were told is not the way it has to be, and we have a choice. So that's a long-winded answer, but
no, choice.
What's your take?
Bring it around, like what the message is. The message is choice. Yeah. That last finishing note is choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Along the way you're talking, you mentioned programming, and I'm doing some interesting work with cyber athletes and esports professionals, and what strikes me about the idea of programming is that they're comfortable with the language of programming, the computer, and designing a landscape, designing a character, and programming attributes on them, and competing on a regular basis to allow for different programming to exist for that character so they can do more, express more traits they want to express to win or achieve or whatever they're trying to do. So, but the idea of programming prior to me thinking these gamers and guys who make video games and guys and girls who make video games and these things was I don't know, not a robust idea of the word programming. I was thinking more just culturally. We're programmed to think a certain way or react a certain way, inculcated, if you will. And now thinking of being able to selectively choose your programming really excites me and interests me. That opportunity we all have to do our own programming is really interesting and compelling for me. I think that's where huge opportunities lie.
Absolutely.
I see it in the financial landscape, like kids who can physically program computers are doing incredibly well financially and can really go anywhere as far as jobs are concerned. Like, it's a universal language, and that if we can appreciate that skill in a broader sense of being able to make decision A so B happens, and then B so C happens, and bring that to health, or bring that to consciousness, or bring that to mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual practices, what an awesome opportunity and what a simple way to frame things.
Mm-hmm.
Programming is just on-off, on-off.
And
choice. And you get to put in the on or the off switch.
Mm-hmm.
You say, this is on now or this is off now. And it's a really unique way of looking at things I never really considered. My consideration of programming professionally was just designing an exercise program or nutrition program. It was just a bunch of variables, and you change those variables on a regular basis so nothing gets overtaxed or under-serviced. Mm-hmm. Really consider for what it is. There's opportunity for that individual to say yes and no distinctly and discreetly to certain things. Mm-hmm. Have that opportunity. I never really considered it as much before.
Let me ask you this, in terms of the gaming stuff, would you say that, you know, computer programmers and you know, game creators, because that's what they do from a kind of a creative standpoint, they're in a creative state, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so, in terms of, you know, how societal programming, if you will, kind of takes place, it's like if you look at schooling, for example, right? If you're, you know, 5 years old, 8 years old, and you're looking at the window, you get, stop daydreaming, pay attention to this stuff, right? So you get that creative state kind of smacked out of you at such an early age. So now you're like, I gotta pay attention to, you know, what they're teaching me, and they're not teaching us how to think, they're teaching us what to think, mm-hmm. right? And it's like, so now is it so? Maybe I'll give you a chance to answer that question. Is that, would you say from your experience with the gaming world that those programmers are in that creative state still?
And I think that's what's interesting about artists and people that create generally. They are able to get there, despite society or our system's best attempts to keep everyone focused on just doing things. People are still able to break away and live in the creative. And you can still take arts in school and programming in school. You can still express that creativity. And some kids, for whatever reason, people are able to keep that alive and going. Mm-hmm. Or a lot of us, and I would say myself included, kind of lost that. And I put all my energy and effort into getting that answer right and studying that effectively so I can get that mark so I can get to school and do those things. And I definitely fell into that. And I was, for better or worse, able to thrive in that environment. And a lot of us are. I mean, it's clear why we've been able to advance so far. That system of education and inculcation and, you know, spin the widget the right way worked in the Industrial Revolution and continues to work for a significant number of jobs that exist presently. Mm-hmm. But so I think they're able to stay in that creative state. They're able to break away despite our best efforts. I've been slowly able to increasingly break away and like tap into my creative energies where I was lost or snowed under with the other things, but I think for a society to improve and grow, and for consciousness to really open up, we need to facilitate more of those opportunities.
Kind of that next evolutionary stage.
Yeah, I think in school, in work, in coaching relationships, and give people back their ability to build their own programs and to be creative and have ownership of that creativity, rather than just being taken along for the ride. And that's my issue with the gaming industry and programming stuff is it's very aware of the psychological tools they can use to manipulate us to stay in the environments they create by making it really compelling to upgrade and level up and do those things.
Yeah.
So if we can get these creative people to appreciate the power they have in these little creative environments they can build, to inject other bits of wisdom or other learning and growing opportunities into these environments, I think that's where kind of that creative space can really flood over and help people make other changes, rather than just staying creative and being creative to make money and make profit and do things. Create
very
these
small.
places. Yeah, it's very small. Create these, appreciate what you're building in these creative spaces, and let other messages kind of flood in and grow and flourish from there. I don't know if I answered your question. Thinking broad topics. I feel like that's going to be so much more. Start asking me questions and then come back and try and answer them. Get off on tangents. It's also the first time we chatted, so we're going to feel for things. But
okay, so I have two more questions for you. Okay. Well, one I want to come back to because you mentioned the industrial, and I think we're going to go back and forth. Who's the I can't even think of the word now, but who's the interviewer? Who's the interviewee?
Yeah, that's cool.
I think right?
I think those are good ones. I want to have conversations with fun people and interesting people.
Yeah.
Get in there and see how they think. And,
Yeah.
I'm down with that. So yeah, fire away.
So I want to come back to, you mentioned the industrial age and the last 150, probably 150 to almost 250 years, right? So I want to come back and talk about that. But since you've started to embrace this, so you mentioned kind of going from kind of that one stream of the intellect and doing very well in school to now embracing some of the right brain thinking, if you will. So in terms of the difference that's made in your life, can you talk more about that? Because I think, that we are in a or have been in a left brain society where it's like, everything has to be measurable and accountable, and you have to be able to add things up, and I think with a lot of, we're going to talk about Bob Proctor a lot, we're going to talk about Faith Show, we're going to talk about these 4 pillars. So I think some of these other pillars, the mental, emotional, spiritual side of things, right? It's not measured through our 5 senses, but there's very tangible results that come from getting in that right brain, that creative state of thinking. So have you noticed a shift, and if so, a larger shift since you've started to embrace that other side?
Just if I could say one, that'd be excitement. I feel more excitement and opportunity in things. Being able to stay fairly optimistic in life, but since kind of stepping into that creativity a bit more, and that uncertainty, and opening myself up to seeing the world in different ways and trying on different words and different language, I just generally feel more excitement for life rather than, we're in a terrible space and the world is awful and things are bad and there's wars and violence and famine and poverty and all those things are true. I see there's opportunity for change in just insanely large amounts. Mm-hmm. There's so much that I don't know and appreciate about my capabilities as a human being. And I'm aware that there's more. Enough people around the world aren't even aware that there's more because they're struggling to just get food and shelter and find things. I feel like there's such an opportunity for the world to move in so many different positive directions once we can get some basic needs taken care of, so people can really step into the creativity stuff. And I feel like one of the large reasons why we went so left brain and went so focused on things, because so many people were without and continue to be without, but enough of us in the Western world that really adopted that serious left brain thinking have enough to start to be able to really appreciate that left brain again. I think there's an opportunity for us to consider that stuff more as we get safer. Not that it shouldn't be in there right from the get-go, but I feel like that's why there's a shift, and some people are seeing and experiencing a shift. Mm-hmm. There's enough people that have enough who want to let go of that fear and start to bring back some of that childlike interest in wonder in the world. And I'm feeling that wonder, feeling that excitement again. Nice. Yeah, I like that. Sweet. Yeah. Well, what was your other question, Teresa? You had that too.
Well, so in terms of not necessarily a question, but just going back to the Industrial Revolution and your point about that, or the industrial age, and what has gotten us to this point as a society, and I actually talk about that in my book, and I talk about, and I know that people, I'm sure there's lots of people on my Facebook and stuff like that, they say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, and blah, 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 and yes, it's theory if you look at one individual component of the puzzle, but if you, like I've been looking at this for at least 15 years, if not longer, and so when you start to hear it from, multiple books and different sources and different resources and different YouTube channels and different speakers and different, and then you start to piece it all together like you would a puzzle, it becomes not a theory but a fact. And there's a huge fact that we have been programmed. So when you talk about, a lot of people, being in famine and well, if you look at the turn of the century, right, things like taxes didn't exist, things like, so there are very real signs and very real indicators and very real facts stating that there are a few families at the top that really control everything, right? And that's the 1% that keeps getting richer and owns everything. And so the masses have been built into a self-policing societal system where, we mentioned that one person going the opposite way, that if that one person is going over here and saying, hey, like, there are some facts that maybe you guys aren't all aware of, right? Then they become the troublemaker, they become the crazy person, they become the, right? But if everybody would just sit down and look at all the facts that are presented, right? Then I think enough of us are and that's, that shift that you alluded to. I think enough of us are becoming aware that, like, good enough is not good enough, and we can do better, and we can have more. And as a result of us making different choices, right, the 1% no longer get to keep all the money. It gets more evenly distributed, and those people that don't have housing, don't have, the means to even start to think like this, right, all of a sudden that gets pushed down the line rather than, it's still funneling to the top, if that makes sense. So I guess my point is that industrial age, the foundation upon which our current system is built, and I like to say it's built on deceit, it's built on reactionary means in terms of healthcare, and it's built on competition. And we can build a new societal model built on preventative health and wellness, built on awareness and full disclosure, and built on collaboration and creativity. Because when you get rid of the competition and you start to, we've only been working together for 6 months to a year, right? But I see all the things that you're doing and the people that you're working with, and more people are starting to come into that fold, and what you do and what you bring to the table is so different and such a unique perspective than anybody else. Nobody's going to be able to do it the same as you, right? The same as John Goodman, the same as Bob Proctor, the same as Faith Fitzgerald, the same as me, right? And if we all approach things as, hey, we know that, like you said, you acknowledge the bad and all the shitty things that are going on in the world, but if we all stand together, we can create something that's never been done before. We can create something that's completely beautiful, and completely unique, and completely creative, and then that gives the rest of the people an option. Do you want the new, which is we're standing together and we've got each other's backs and we're helping each other, and we're all abundant and we're all thriving? Or do you want to compete and knock each other down and, do what got us to this point in history? I'm not saying everybody's bad, but I think, I don't know, there's, I'm gonna go on tangent.
It's a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole. I love these conversations, and I used to still have these conversations with buddies. Every once in a while, I'm like left feeling a little frustrated that I see all these things. I feel I'm like, what can I do? What do I do?
And I think that's where people get stuck, right? Like, because I feel like there's three parts. There's exposure, right? So people need to know what's going on, right? Once there's exposure, then there can be healing, and then there can be choice in terms of, okay, that's what's going on, and yes, it's terrible, and yes, it's shitty, and well, what do? Okay, well, let's heal ourselves first. So I'm going to think differently. I'm going to, change the amount of money I make. I'm going to change my health. I'm going to change all these, in essence, the 4 pillars, right? And then how? So like every dollar we spend is a vote. We talk about organics and stuff like that, right? I mean, yes, it's more expensive, but the more people that fork the money over to buy that, that's a vote. That's a change that's going to start to come. And you can see it over the last 5, 6, 10 years. Organics have really been on the rise.
Organics, let alone local. Like even if it's not organic, local, and just knowing who you're purchasing from and having a bit better feel for their practices. And is this someone who's conducting their business in a way that I support?
Yeah, the ethical or the
which I find even just as beautiful, if not more beautiful, than the organic label. If it's a good business, because Pepsi owns a lot of organic farms.
True.
Like organic doesn't even tell you the whole story.
Yeah.
And it's of the shitty things, the things that you're frustrated and pissed off around, like the way we're marketed to and the way things are described to us. It's manipulative, and I can't. I'm part impressed and part frustrated by it. It's like knowing how easily manipulative we are as human beings is one thing. Taking advantage of it for your growth and to better your family and take care of your people and have whatever needs you feel you have the right to have met. It's like good on you for doing your research and figuring out how to convince us to do shit. But I think we need some better options so that people can take that and better appreciate how we're being manipulated. But that takes a level of awareness that doesn't just come to everyone. And I think this is contentious. I never know how to describe this fully when I do say it, but the reality is, part of the reason the Industrial Revolution was so successful and the style of cogs and wheels education so effective is not all of us are created equal. I'm not talking about men and female differences or race differences, cognitively, mentally. Some people aren't going to be able to see the same things others can see. I will never paint like Van Gogh. I don't think that I could ever have, even if I had the similar skills of like my deft touch or ability to see color, even if those things I would never paint like Van Gogh. We're each individual is each capable of a variety of different things. Some of us aren't lucky enough to have as much cognitive health to perform tasks, creative tasks, think outside the box tasks, let alone just physical manual labor tasks. Like, mental health is a legitimate thing.
Don't you think that's part of the programming?
Absolutely. Part of it, for sure.
If we weren't all, there's great culture.
If we had better health and better nutrition and better support, better family support, love and support, I think even those with mental health issues could do a lot more than they can in this society. But there's still differences. And that difference has been exploited for sure, and allowed to fester and become something really negative for a lot of people's health and life. But in certain circumstances, you can't, A to B is different, and B to C is different. We're all going to be capable of different things, and some of us can perform really well in certain mold directions and in certain recovery molds, doing one thing repetitively and getting really refined at that. And others will be great thinking big thoughts and organizing people together and collaborating and doing that collaborative work. So you're not going to find a system that's going to give everyone all the support they need until it's really, really an individual-based system. That's when things could really flourish. Everyone has a coach. Everyone has a mentor. Everyone has someone that they can trust and that supports them and's got their back and really has their best wishes in them. But I don't know when that is going to happen. We can all have a coach. We all have a mentor and a guide.
So you don't think it's true we're all leaders and all followers?
I do. Yeah. I think we are all leaders and all followers all at the same time. Some of us have a proclivity or an ability or a way in which we can lead and pull people around us. I think it can be fostered. Sure. Yeah. It's like I can train to be an athlete, but I won't jump as high as the next person. I might not run as far as the next person. I can train similar skills. Some people are going to have advantages. I don't think it's good, bad, or otherwise. It just is.
No, and I agree with you. I think the key is to find what you truly love, what you're truly passionate about, and what you're truly good at, right? Like, I don't necessarily buy that, like, there are no accidental people. There's no people are here by accident, right? Many people just haven't found their purpose or what they're, I love...
and it can take lifetimes.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, not everybody's going to wake up this summer, right? Not everybody's going to find their purpose. Not everybody's going to...
But if we had better coaching and better support for each individual, much more likely to be.
Yeah.
There's just not that support for people. And that gap is big. People that have that support or have access to that support even, and those that don't, that gap is big, and it's racially charged still, it's sexually charged still. There's a lot of charged energies that hold that gap back from changing. So it's a question of some years and some generations to make this happen, but I still think it's worth the endeavor to bring it around, which excites me about the whole name for this, that conscious endeavor. It's worth participating in this endeavor. Because otherwise, nothing's going to change for my kids.
Nothing's going to change.
And their kids. But where does it start? Where do you want this change to start? If we're going to pick one system, education, we're talking about education, we're talking about the industrial system, getting commercial markets for things like food. If you're going to pick one thing,
you look at the different areas, the different pillars, and I think there are I believe there are enough people that are standing up, that are, call it awakening, call it remembering, call it whatever you want, but I think there are enough people now that are standing up that there's going to be a tipping point, right? I mean, you look at, I don't follow politics, I don't vote, because I believe they both play for the same team. That being said, you look at what Bernie Sanders is talking about and standing up for. He's saying exactly the same thing. Big money controls everything. Politics are rigged, and all the elections are paid for and bought. So he's standing up for the people. He's saying, if you elect me, we're going to separate or dismantle the banks. We're going to make elections, what's he calling it, a political revolution, right? If you look at healthcare, there's a whole slew of people like you and formerly me, because I'm still kind of in healthcare, but and coaches that are in the trenches every single day, and they're getting real world results, right? Whether it's losing weight or with top athletes or whatever, right? A lot of charitable organizations, obviously hospitals, they're still a part of big money, right? And so the smaller guys, if you will, need to band together, right? Get rid of the egos. The people that are great at education, educate new trainers to come in and train people. The nutritionists, talk about that, but band together, right? Rather than everybody trying to do it on their own. Now all of a sudden we've got a preventative healthcare system, right? Where you've got your nutritionists, you've got your strength coaches, you've got your personal trainers, but we're all working together to say these are the things that work.
And it's there, but it's a two-tiered system. You can get all that right now, and people do tap into all that right now, but it costs money.
Yeah.
As well it should, because it's valuable. Your health is valuable, your performance is valuable, your longevity as a parent, lover, friend, family, brother, sister is valuable, and it should be worth money. The issue is this massive gap of people that are borderline terrified to even step foot into a gym or to take their health seriously. Terrified to make changes in that way. Totally uncertain where to start or how to start or where to get things going. Bamboozled by the overwhelming amount of options and directions and choices and things. How do we get them? How do we get access to them? How does this preventive healthcare industry that exists now but costs a ton of money get to them?
I think there's 4 tiers. There's 4 jump-off points. I think you're going to have, and it coincides with the pillars, right? You're going to have people that are looking for change, they're ready for change, they want to change everything, right? And they're going to, what are you most comfortable with? Do you want to change your body first? Okay. So we're going to have the physical people that are, everybody knows they live in a body, but a lot of people don't know their spirit living in a body, right? Or don't think that. So, a lot of people are going to be, okay, well, what do I have control over? I can go to a gym and I can get a coach, right? So that's going to be that. I have a friend who, just started doing yoga not long ago. Never really been in her body. Was always had premonitions and dreams and so to start yoga was the scariest thing for her. She was just like Bambi, right? 30-year-old woman, right? It's like you never even walked before because she was so in tune with the spirit, right? And was kind of up here, and so they might be able to do a program like training in power, or meditation, or right, and they're gonna be more embracing of that pillar, right? For a lot of people, it's going to be the mental pillar. Okay, you're scared of these things. Well, that fear and that way of thinking and that apprehension comes from a programmed way of thinking. Which, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. Chances are it came from your parents at school, and you look at your environment, right? So how do we change that? The only way to change a paradigm, the multitude of habits, is either through emotional impact or through the repetition of a new idea. Right? So start to paint a picture for people. What do you want? What do you want your life to look like? Do you want a healthy body? Do you want to change your work? Do you want to change your relationships? Well, you got to paint that picture in your mind first, right? And then you have to repeat it over and over and over and over again. And when you do, eventually it's going to change that old way of thinking.
You're taking and acting the choices you make back to choice, right? Yeah. Everything starts to trickle down from there.
Yeah. So I think it's awareness first, and then You know, if your biggest thing is I don't know how, or I'm scared, or what have you, okay, well, we work on your thinking first, and we change your thinking, and then that can change everything else.
Every time I think of change, for some reason my brain comes back to two things. One is he went on to be a CEO of, I believe, General Electric. I'm blanking on the man's name right now, but he was tasked with trying to reduce the infant mortality rate in the United States back in the 70s and 80s. It was in the 60s or 70s worldwide. Like it was worse than some African countries, the infant mortality rate. It's crazy for a developed world. The most financially profitable, strongest country in the world had a terribly embarrassing infant mortality rate. And he went to his research, and he's a systems thinking guy. And what he came up with, his approach was better educating teachers at elementary and junior high school level about nutrition. That was what it all came back to. Most infant mortality is based on poor nutrition habits of while they're in the womb and then as soon as they're out. So that was what all the energy went toward, was just teaching these teachers to better impart this knowledge to the youth so that they were making better choices. So by the time it came around, they did have children, at least they'd be in a bit better health status, and then they'd take it more seriously and feed their kids better. Cut their number, they're in the top 10 of most developed countries now again. Still not at the top tier, because they still got a large income gap, and the way their education system there is a bit of a mess. But massive impact by teaching our teachers better. So when I think about immediately, things like this and shows like this will help people who are curious find another way in, and then find a coach or mentor to help them make that choice. Still requires money in the short term. I'm wondering about the banding together of people and influencers and big thinkers and creative thinkers getting into these education systems at a much earlier end point to help people confidently make these choices much sooner than when they're 30 or 40 ready to lose weight and they've already had a kid or two and have already passed on some problematic epigenetics to their children, let alone habits and choices. Like I think that education system is some massively missed opportunity to influence things at that level.
I would agree with that 100%.
That's what excites me and makes me curious right now. So what can we all do to steer our direction that way? And think not about this generation, but 1, 2 down the line. How do we make that stuff happen? That I'm curious about.
Well, I think there's non-traditional means too, right? I don't know, maybe the education would be open to, they haven't been open to change in 150 years, right? But maybe they would eventually be open to getting, a program like Thinking to Results in there, or, introducing meditation to all the, all the students or all the school boards or whatever. If not, then I think we have to think non-traditional methods, like, videotape coaching, right? Like we could run a 6-month mental thinking program and have the parents buy in and do it for, next to nothing, right? $20 a head or something like that for each session we do a session a week, right? So yes, there's monetary involvement, but it's not.
There's advantages to that though. It gets people to commit. Put some money on the table, and the more money you put on, the more serious you're going to take that commitment. So there are distinct advantages to using money as part of the equation, for sure.
But then using that non-traditional means, like we don't necessarily. It doesn't necessarily have to break the bank.
Right.
Like,
but it might be enough of a stress for them to take it seriously. Someone in that financial situation, like, $20, this is a lot. That's food for a couple of days. Like, I'm going to do this because it's that important to me. Getting that flavor. As far as non-traditional means, back to the gaming thing, I'm so fascinated by this area right now. It's something that literally 1 billion people around the world are playing a game right now on a tablet or a phone or a computer or a gaming device. 1 billion people. There's very few other activities that enough of us do that are similar enough that have like a similar endpoint. I think of companies that are socially minded and that maybe are willing and already are thinking about their people's health and maybe not even just their employees, maybe starting to consider the consumers of their goods, the health of them, the health of the world and the planet with the way they recycle materials. I have this grand vision of every Apple and Google and Amazon made device pausing. Take a breath, and then things get back on. What if that happened? I don't know if the world like spin a different axis at the same time or something.
People
Yeah. Whatever, it stops. But there's some
love
way
that, though.
technology can really bring us together.
I love that.
Yeah.
And imagine that was done for, there was one for each pillar. We're going to do it for 10 minutes, and you're going to meditate. You're all going to focus on this, right? And that's the only message that comes up on the screen.
Yeah, that's it. It's pause time.
Yeah. And, you can do other things, but
yeah,
we're so into this that.
And I see so much.
What am I going to do? I guess I better do what they're telling me to do.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things that I'm increasingly aware of is language is interesting to me. Things slowly trickle in, and I'm more comfortable using different words in different language. The idea of fear-based is for some reason maybe uncomfortable for somebody to say, oh, we're fear-based. I'm starting to appreciate that more, and I'm seeing it in the stuff that gets published and released, particularly in this gaming space, this technology space. I see a lot of parent websites saying, like, be worried about gaming addiction, be worried about tablet and cell phone addiction, be worried about addiction, it's fear-based stuff.
Yeah.
And I can understand it because there's no one in any big way trying to flip that paradigm, that view of this technology around. But what if it's a massive unifying tool that we're all holding in our hands?
Yeah.
Some way to bring great positive energy and vibes to us all, rather than something to be addicted to and afraid of. Because you can see the same with exercise, you can see the same with food, you can see the same with sex. Anything that we're designed to do can be enjoyed to the point of us losing ourselves and just pursuing that straight enjoyment. That's just part of human being. So rather than being fearful of addiction, let's be interested in how we can use these tools for peace and for betterment, rather than just to be something more to be afraid of and keep perpetuating this fear cycle.
Yeah.
My kids, I can't play video games, sit inside. What if your kid's engaging in a fantastic community and he's learning how to resolve conflict when he's gaming? He's learning all these skills and tools that we don't appreciate. And what if we made it easier for them by just knowing that at 5:05 p.m. on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, it stops and you got to breathe for 3 seconds before you get going. I think it'd be so easy, and that is interesting and compelling to me too. Like education, getting things sooner, and technology, taking the fear out of this technology and actually letting it be welcome as a means to, like you said, reach so many more people that we can otherwise reach at price points that we could only wish we could charge people to consume our services. When I think of conscious endeavor, I think I'm starting to appreciate some of the things like fear-based and words, even like meditation that I used to kind of shy away from. It's like, what a great way to bring this to different people and play with different language and have different experts come in and describe what they do in their own words.
Yeah.
To break down some of those barriers around meditation. I don't know. I can't do that. I don't know what that. I'm going to do it. Breathing. Oh, I can breathe.
Yeah.
Little things like that. I feel
be present.
Yeah.
Be in the moment. Be where you are, rather than thinking of what you have to do for the next couple of hours, or what happened to you last night, or the person that cut you off in traffic. Right? Be present. Breathe.
100%. And that's okay. You don't have to all meditate and be in a fluffy chair or be at a retreat. There's no one talking for 6 months. Like there's lots of ways in to make it a little more acceptable and palatable. We're coming from so many different places, so much different judgment on the words that we hear, and it shocks me. It fascinates me.
They're all steps, right? They're all. When you get comfortable doing that, then you get comfortable with the next step, and the next step, and the next step. So you can take leaps and bounds.